Someone moved into my house while I slept. I always thought the strangest part of being temporarily home alone would be the quiet. My husband had left for a work trip out of state, and our 2 kids were staying with my sister for the week. I imagined the solitude would feel like a mini vacation, sleeping in, staying up late, binge-watching trash TV, eating cereal for dinner if I felt like it. But on the second morning, I noticed something that unsettled me. Nothing dramatic, nothing outright alarming, just a subtle shift. The dining room chair wasn't in its usual place. It had been pulled out about 2 inches from the table. I stared at it, trying to make sense of it. I never leave chairs pulled out. It's not about tidiness, it's just habit. After meals, I always nudge them back into position. Had I done that the night before? I couldn't remember. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I had kicked it without realizing. I pushed the chair back in and moved on. The next morning, I noticed something else. The cabinet above the coffee machine was cracked open. Not wide, just enough to see the dark space between the door and the frame. I always make sure everything is shut tightly. Had I forgotten to close it? I told myself it was probably just exhaustion playing tricks on me. But then I saw the TV remote on the coffee table, flipped upside down. I never put it that way. The buttons were facing down, as though someone had deliberately set it there. A strange sensation surged in my chest. I shook it off. When you're alone, your mind has a way of creating patterns, of noticing the smallest discrepancies. Maybe it was just the quiet, amplifying things. But by the 4th morning, I couldn't ignore the discomfort any longer. The cereal box was left open, the hallway light was on, and Luna, my aging retriever, had been acting strangely. At night, she would pace around the house, whining softly at corners or staring at walls. She had never done that before. I assumed she missed the kids, but part of me wondered, did animals sense things we couldn't? I found myself double-checking the locks every night, front door, back door, garage, even the windows. I'd tug on them just to hear the reassuring click. Everything was secure. Everything was locked. That was the only thing that kept my nerves in check. The 5th morning, I found something that made my stomach twist in a sickening way. The stack of folded laundry I had left on the couch was slightly askew, as though someone had brushed against it. I hadn't moved it. Luna couldn't have reached it. Even if she could, she wouldn't have moved it so neatly. I stood there, staring at it, the feeling in my chest turning cold. I tried to laugh it off. I told myself I was just being paranoid. My husband would have teased me for being overly dramatic. My sister would tell me to get more sleep. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. That night, Luna's behavior grew worse. She whined incessantly, her breathing coming in short, panicked bursts. She paced in tight, agitated circles, her body stiff. She kept nudging her nose against the bedroom door, as if she wanted to open it. "Luna," I whispered, kneeling down to rub her fur. "You're making me nervous." Her fur stood on end, her whole body tense with fear. Dogs know. I didn't, but she did. And she was terrified of something. I reluctantly went to bed, checking the locks one final time. Though I knew they were secure, I shut off the lamp, lay down, and tried to close my eyes. The house creaked and groaned, settling into the night. I only remember the sound that woke me, a faint metallic clicking. At first, I thought it was the heater. Then, I thought it was Luna scratching herself. But when I opened my eyes, she was sitting at the foot of the bed, her body rigid. "Luna?" I whispered, my voice barely a breath. She didn't respond. She couldn't respond. Her body was rigid, her eyes fixed on that one spot on the wall. The clicking grew louder, shifting metal, scraping against the walls from inside the house. My heart pounded in my chest, thudding so loudly it drowned out everything else. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and slipped out of bed. Luna didn't budge. She just sat there, trembling and growling at the wall. I moved cautiously toward her, my breath shallow. The vent behind the dresser was old, the screws rusted, but still intact. I didn't want to touch it. Every instinct told me not to, but Luna's growl pushed me forward. I reached for the top edge of the dresser, bracing myself, and dragged it away from the wall. Dust bunnies scattered across the floor, and the vent cover came into view. Some of the screws were loose, very loose, too loose. Someone had been turning them from the inside. My entire body went cold. I crouched down, trying to steady my breath. The vent cover was barely hanging on, its screws twisted, as if someone had been unscrewing them from inside the duct. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up as I cautiously reached for the cover. It came off with a sharp clatter, echoing in the silence of the room. I shone my flashlight into the duct. At first, I saw nothing, just the dark metal wall stretching into blackness. But then, my eyes adjusted, and I saw them. Food wrappers, crumpled granola bar wrappers, an empty water bottle, the corner of a juice box, and deeper in the duct, jammed into a bend, was a small, tattered blanket, dirty, worn, and crumpled like someone had used it to sleep. Someone had been living in the air ducts. Someone had been hiding inside my walls. I stumbled back, my legs weak beneath me. I gasped for air, but it felt like my lungs were frozen. I fumbled for my phone, but just then, a soft scrape came from the duct, followed by the unmistakable sound of shuffling someone moving inside. I froze, my body screaming for me to run, but my feet couldn't move. He wasn't sleeping there. He was moving. I didn't think, didn't hesitate. I bolted from the bedroom, Luna right behind me. My hands shook so violently that I missed the light switch twice before finally illuminating the hallway. Every shadow seemed to shift. Every creak made me jump. I grabbed my purse, snatched my car keys, and ran for the front door. I slipped on the mat, but I didn't care. I threw open the door, stumbling into the cold night air, fumbling with my phone until I dialed 911. The police arrived quickly, far more quickly than I expected. They searched the house thoroughly. When they checked the ducts, the wrappers and blanket were gone. The detective believed me. They could see the signs, scuff marks around every vent, disturbed dust in straight lines, as though someone had been crawling through the vents for days. They asked when I first noticed things shifting. I told them about the chair, the remote, the laundry, small things I had brushed off at first. The detective nodded grimly. "That's how it starts," he said. "Small disturbances." He was testing boundaries, testing what you'd notice. The realization made my stomach churn. He had been watching me. He had been moving through my house while I slept, just inches away. He had probably stood over my bed. He had seen me, heard me, watched everything. I stayed at my sister's house that night, but I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him crawling through the ducts, slithering like a snake in the dark. I imagined him watching me while I cooked, while I slept, while I lived my life. The next day, I returned to the house with officers to gather my things. Every vent cover felt like a hidden passage, every shadow a place for him to hide. But the worst moment came when I reached the living room. The couch blanket had been moved. On the coffee table, next to the remote, was one of my daughter's crayons, bright red. It hadn't been there before. We kept them in a drawer. My daughter wasn't home. Someone had taken it out and left it behind. A message. The detective collected it carefully, but it didn't matter. The message was clear. He had been there, and he knew I knew. They searched every corner of the house attic, crawl spaces, basement, nothing. They assumed he slipped out the back when he heard me run, but I wasn't convinced. He had been in the Ducts. He could be anywhere. I never slept in that house again. I never returned except to sign the papers. Even then, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes watching me. The house was sold. It wasn't unusual for my aunt to ask me to house sit. She had always been meticulous about keeping her home in pristine condition, and though I preferred the comfort of my own space, I didn't mind. The house was a beautiful, old colonial-style home filled with antique furniture, family portraits, and memories that seemed to linger in the air. The quietness of the place always gave me a strange sense of peace, like the home was alive, breathing in the silence. I was 37, a mother of 2 young kids, and I had come to my aunt's house to look after it while she took a short trip to visit family in the countryside. The first few days went by uneventfully. A simple routine of tending to her plants, checking the mail, and making sure everything was in order. But it was on the 4th morning when I noticed something strange. At first, I thought it was just my tired eyes playing tricks on me. But after a few more days, the pattern was undeniable. Small things were changing, things I hadn't touched. The chair in the study had been moved 2 inches from where I always placed it, angled just slightly differently. The kitchen cabinet, which I swore I had closed the night before, would be left ajar in the morning. Even the TV remote on the coffee table, always placed neatly at the side, was now upside down. I couldn't tell anyone. I didn't want to seem paranoid, and maybe I was just exhausted. I was a mother, after all. But still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. One night, after finishing a long day of chores, I was sitting in the living room watching a movie when my aunt's dog, Benny, started acting odd. He was an old, grumpy terrier who had always kept to himself, but tonight he was behaving strangely. His eyes darted around, and his low growl filled the otherwise quiet room. "Benny?" I called out, confused. He was standing by the vent in the corner of the room, just staring at it, growling with his ears flattened against his head. I stood up to go see what was bothering him and noticed how his hackles were raised. As I got closer, I heard a faint scratching sound from behind the vent. My heart skipped a beat. I had checked the vent before there was nothing unusual, but now I felt a strange compulsion to investigate further. "Benny, what's wrong?" I whispered, though I already knew. I bent down, carefully pulling off the vent cover. The room felt colder suddenly, a draft sweeping over me. At first, I saw nothing, just the dusty interior of the vent. But then, my eyes caught something wedged in the corner. A few crumpled food wrappers, a crushed soda can, and a blanket folded neatly, like it had been placed there by someone. I stared at it for a moment, my breath catching in my throat. My mind raced. No one had been in the house besides me. I hadn't even opened the vent since I got here. I turned slowly, my eyes scanning the room. Was I imagining things? But then I remembered. The chair, the cabinet, the remote. It all clicked into place. Someone had been here. Someone had been moving through the house. I quickly put the vent cover back on, my hands trembling. My heart was pounding in my chest. I didn't know what to do. Was I just tired? Or was there someone living in the house with me? I didn't tell anyone. How could I? Who would believe me? I convinced myself that it was just my imagination running wild. But that night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound, every creak of the floorboards sent my pulse racing. I kept the lights on in every room and locked every door. The next day, I decided to do a thorough check of the house. I went through every room, looking for any signs of someone being there. Someone hiding, maybe, but everything seemed normal. Too normal. Too quiet. It wasn't until I reached the attic that I found something. The attic had always been a place I avoided. It was filled with old boxes, dusty furniture, and remnants of my aunt's past life. But today, I felt compelled to go up there. Something was pulling me, urging me to look closer. I pulled open the attic door and climbed the narrow stairs. The air was musty, thick with dust, and the floor creaked under my weight. And then I saw it. A small opening in the wall. It was barely noticeable, almost hidden behind a stack of old blankets and crates. I knelt down, pulling the crates away, and felt a chill run down my spine. The opening wasn't natural. It looked as though someone had made it, carving a hole into the wall. I could see a narrow tunnel beyond it, a tunnel that led to the rest of the house. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. I wasn't alone. I thought back to the small signs, the chair, the cabinet, the remote. He had been using the vents as a tunnel system, crawling through them at night, moving from room to room while I slept. While I was in the house, living my life, he was hiding in the walls, watching me. And I never knew. My breath was shallow, my hands trembling as I stood frozen in the attic, staring at the tunnel that had been right beneath my nose. It was all coming together now. The feeling that something was always out of place, the way Benny had reacted to the vent. I was not the first person to have stayed in this house. I wondered how many other house sitters, how many other people had come and gone, unaware of the hidden intruder, the silent watcher living in the walls. How long had he been here? I closed my eyes, fighting back the panic. I didn't know what to do. If I called the police, they would think I was crazy. But then again, if I didn't call them, who else would be in danger? I had to leave. I had to get out of the house. But as I turned to leave the attic, I froze. I heard something, a soft scuffle, a faint noise from behind me. I turned, heart hammering in my chest, and there, standing at the edge of the narrow tunnel, was a figure, a man, his face barely visible in the dim light, a mask of pale skin and hollow eyes. His mouth twitched into a strange, unsettling grin. He hadn't been living in the vents, I realized. He had been living in the walls, using the ducts to travel through the house, always a step ahead of me, always watching. And now, he was standing in front of me. "Don't worry," he whispered, his voice a low rasp. "I'm not here to hurt you. I just wanted to be close." I backed away, feeling the cold air press against my skin, my breath ragged in my throat. I turned and ran, slamming the attic door behind me. I didn't stop running until I was out of the house, my heart still racing, my hands trembling. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at the house, before I finally managed to get to my car. The police never found him. They searched the house, the walls, the vents, but he was gone. No traces of him, nothing to prove he had ever been there. I left that night and never went back, but the memories of that place still haunt me. The sound of his whisper, the feeling of being watched, the knowledge that someone was hiding in the walls, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal themselves. And every now and then, when I'm alone, I hear a soft scuffle in the distance. I'll never know if he's still out there, watching me. If this story unsettled you, make sure to subscribe for more true style horror and check out hushedstories.com for tales you should never listen to alone.